Morning everyone, thanks for coming. Welcome to the first talk for today. I'd like to introduce you our guest, João Diogo Ramos. We're obviously all big Spectrum fans, big Crash fans as well. I think it's probably a dream of all of us to have a Spectrum museum, and this guy has actually gone and done it in Portugal. So congratulations to him. Yes. I'm going to hand over to João to give a presentation about his museum, and then that will take about 30 minutes, and then after that I'll have a quick chat with João if there's anything else that I feel we could talk about, and then open it up to the floor in case there's any questions for anyone about his museum. Okay, so he's got a lot of nice items there. I think it's going to be really interesting, so enjoy the show everyone.
Morning everyone. I'm delighted to be here, to be where it all started, to have the opportunity to be the first one to open these sessions, these panels. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I tried to bring as many, let's say, awkward things as I could. So a lot of things also from Timex Portugal that you will see. And I'll basically be explaining you why we created the museum, why I remember to do this, what is the museum, and what we plan to do, because this is the first, let's say, I think I can say it's the first international presentation I'm making on the museum, so it's an important moment for us, so let's go along. First, thank you to Crash for inviting me to do the talk. And also thank you you will learn about this name Cantanhede, which is the city where I come from. Thank you to the City Hall that supported all this crazy endeavor of making a museum. So, as it happens with our computers, it's also happening with the... Okay, it's working. So, why am I here? This is the only film I have with a Spectrum, so I had a rubber key 48K ZX Spectrum. This was when I was more or less 10 years. I think I got it at least 2 years before. I had two. First one broke the ULA. I didn't know what it was, but I got a second one. Many years later, I understood what the ULA was. So the Spectrum was very important to me. I did a career in computer science. I'm an informatics engineer because I learned to program in a Spectrum like many of us. Then evolved into a PC, GW Basic, Quick Basic, all of that. Without having a single class, I'm not a good programmer, okay, but without having a single class in school, I did went to the finals in Portugal of a programming competition, just learning Basic by myself with books, typings, magazines, things like that. So this, I can say that the museum started more or less around 2013. Which is when I decided to start collecting. I did have many objects from my childhood in the attic, but I went to a fair where I got a Spectrum. I went home, I put it working, I wrote something like "Guess Who's Back," and I decided I need to start collecting these computers. Why? Because I gave an interview many years ago where I said that we were from the Spectrum generation. What I meant was we were fortunate enough to have a device that forced us to learn how to use it. When we were typing in load, we were trying to understand what load meant. For a Portuguese guy, it meant also learning English, things like that. So the computer, unlike a console, made us have to learn what it was to program it. And so I thought it was very important to me, and so I said that expression in a certain interview. And then I was in 2013. I don't have kids. So I have time, that's what I mean with that. So I thought, the Spectrum was so important to me, I need to make sure that we don't get lost with it. If all the Spectrums in the world disappear, I need to be sure that I'm preserving this. Even so, because there is a huge connection with my country. So Timex in Portugal did a lot of things for this context. And so I wanted also to remember my Portuguese colleagues that this was very important in the 80s in Portugal. So that's more or less when I started collecting. Then I have a problem very soon because I had a pile of computers, I want to show it to others and I couldn't find a way. And that's when I was thinking what to do with this, just like Indiana Jones is looking at his artifact, and I was thinking what to do, and I knew I had to think big. I'm not saying this because it's nice. I'm an entrepreneur. I love all my life. I did things. I wanted to play table tennis. I set up a team. I wanted to practice karate. I set up a dojo. Why? Because we didn't have it. I grew up in a small place, so we were used to do things. So if you want to do something, you build it if you don't have it, which is a little bit what they did with the computers to us, right? So I had to think big, but this is not the museum. This is another project that was very important. It was funny. I don't know if Peter is already in the audience. Peter is a friend of mine. He was very surprised when he realized that I created a certain platform that was very important to all of this. So before doing the museum, together with some friends, we applied for an entrepreneurship competition. We got the first prize, which gave us money. We set up a company and we created a platform called Collectors Bridge. It existed until the beginning of this year. Now it was shut down. Collectors Bridge was kind of, let's say, a Facebook for collectors. So we wanted to share our objects, but without mixing it up with our holidays and things like that. So we created this platform, which was available here, which was very important because I was using it to manage my collection. And some other friends were also using it, okay? But it didn't work as a business, so we shut it down, and that's past, but it's important to this story. While we were doing Collectors Bridge, I was basically thinking about all the problem I had with my own collection of computers. And eventually I said to my wife, I will never collect the calculators. I think I have them almost all now. And then you can, whatever you name it, that happened. So I think, well, I will leave for later some things I need to do. In 2016, I was invited in Portugal in the National Museum to organize a celebration of the spectrum. And it was a very special moment for us. It was a simple thing, just one day. But the fact I could take my computers and show it to others, and some of them being used, was good. To see the smile on the face of a father with his child, teaching him what was his first computer, was very special to me. So I thought, I like this. I like this feeling. In 2017, I was invited by a friend that unfortunately couldn't come today, Will Woodvine, to visit Cambridge. So basically I got a call saying, are you coming in August to the UK? And I said, I'm not planning, what's up? We have the possibility to visit all the facilities of Sinclair in Cambridge. Okay, when do I need to be there? So I was there with Andrew and many others that are here, and Peter, well, I'll name them. And so we had the opportunity to visit this. We also visit some museums here in the UK. I knew already some. And don't misinterpret me, please. Our museum in Portugal is a niche thing. It's very specialized. But that's what makes it special. Because in UK, you had many computers. You had the Dragon, you had the BBC Micro, Auric Atmos, you name them. In Portugal, we had the Spectrum. Well, we had a few Commodores, but let's not talk about that. No. But so we had the Spectrum as the main computer. So the feeling we have, the relationship we have with our first computer is very special. It's like the football team. So it's very, very special. And that's what we are capitalizing with our museum in Portugal, okay? So the other thing I did was in the biggest gaming event in 2017 called Lisboa Games Week, which happened again last week. So I'll show some pictures. I organized an area dedicated to Timex Portugal with their creations. So these are just some pictures from those things I was explaining. This is from the anniversary in Lisbon, from a TV. And this is the visit to Cambridge. So Andrew, Brandon, Ant Harper, Mike, who disappeared, Adam, Paul, Will Woodvine, Peter, and Neil. We were all in Cambridge, and it was an amazing moment to me. I need to make a stop and say thank you. Not thank you because it's nice to say thank you. It's because living abroad and trying to collect things that sometimes you only get in UK is a nightmare. And I'm not talking about the guys that don't like to send abroad. I'm not complaining. But the fact is, sometimes I call one of these friends of mine and I say, guys, I need someone to get me this package. And eventually, one package becomes a pile of stuff that seems like it will never end. So I really need to say thank you to all of those that have been helping me to make this happen, because it's much harder to do it from Portugal, at least for the UK objects, of course. And others like Mark Smith that I met afterwards, Mark Kusterman in the Netherlands, a good friend who we have been buying things. Jared was here. We have things in the museum from Jared also. I'm not showing it today, but you can see it online. So there are many things I need to say thank you. Let me just take this out, if I can. There's something from the connection. Yep. Come on, the focus is not there. Connect to the network and it's in the projector? Yeah, I don't know how to take it out. It's gone now. No, it's gone. Okay, so let's speed up. I moved a little bit. So, next thing, I was not planning to do a museum. I never planned to do a museum. But I did take some actions that led me into creating a museum. It was more or less inevitable for that to happen. The best example I can give is that eventually I saw a hotel in Portugal selling all the CRT televisions they had. And I basically called them and bought them all. I bought something like 20 CRTs to have at home, not knowing what to do with them, but thinking, I will need this. I know I will need this. And I know that design is very important. I think Sinclair, the work of Rick Dickinson and all the others, is a little bit like Johnny Ive in Apple. So Sinclair is very strong in terms of design, like Apple is. And so I knew that I didn't want to have a museum with all different TV sets and all that. I knew the image was very important. The looks of it was very important. So I did this. And that's one example. So eventually I realized this belongs in a museum. And so that's why I basically challenged the City Hall to create the museum. They thought it was interesting. They didn't know it was so interesting. But the fact is, in the first months, in a city that it's not touristic, we got something like 5,000 visitors that went there. We got people that heard on the radio and came, picked their computer from their mother's house. They came, they met me, they gave me the computer without knowing me. All those moments showed me there is interest for that. One thing, and so I will tell you when this was. Well, the behind the curtain, the non-official answer is another one, which is this. I had built an house. My friends would come to my house. I would show the computers. They would spend hours there. And eventually there was one day where I was trying to show a certain computer, and it was behind so many computers already that I couldn't get it. And I said, this can't go on like this. And I had two options. Either start selling the objects or open a museum. I told you I was an entrepreneur. You need to walk the talk. So I did it. So that's why we started this. So first talks in 2018. Then we started with a temporary exhibition in an existing museum dedicated to other things, stones, basically. So the Stone Museum, that's the name of it. Andrew visited it. And so this is a picture from the original exhibition. One room with the story of the computers over there, with all the boards, the ones I had back then from the rubber key. One shelf about clones from around the world. Now it's a full area in the museum. Almost nothing from Sinclair amplifiers and things like that. Guys, if the museum was in UK, it would be called Sinclair Museum. It's not called that because in Portugal I couldn't call it Sinclair. I had to remain, let's say, neutral with Timex. So that's why I use the Spectrum, which is a symbol of our generation. So this was the first one. Then in 2020, we moved to a new location, October 17th, and the real Load ZX Spectrum Museum opened. Okay? What is the museum? I'll show you a 1-minute video for that. So it's in a former primary school, and it has several areas that we are seeing now. The footage is from a national TV show about gaming. That's why it has the Super Clive and things like that. We also have an area to explore when our computer works with all the processors and the input, output, and the storage. Because kids nowadays, they don't know what is a tape. So we need to teach them that. They never saw a tape. Oh, Jared, there it was, your diagram with all the computers. That canvas was given by Grant Sinclair, who was used on the BBC show when he presented the Irish strike. So the nephew of Sir Clive. That's what it is. Okay, first video, just showing what the museum. Wait, there's more, and better, much better. Wait, but thank you guys. So we were lucky enough to have a lot of attention. All the public TV channels in Portugal visited. The first time we opened the museum was because we got a call from one of the TV channels saying we want to go there, even if it's to film the painters doing their job while they are finishing the construction work. So there was an hype around this. So we were lucky enough to have a lot of attention. Now, what is a museum? Something that focuses on study and preservation, exhibition and documentation, education and training. And I'll try to explain you the kind of work we do by focusing on a specific example, which is the work we've been doing with Timex Portugal. Timex, the factory in Portugal, located just south of Lisbon, across the river in Almada, Caparica. So I will tell you when it started and all that, but this is an old, you can see from the cars, Renault 5, many others, Citroën, the 2 horsepower one, or the Diane, I don't know. But so, and a Fiat, an old 600 Fiat or something like that, 600. Okay, very well. So an old picture from Timex Portugal. I visited it recently. It's different, but you can recognize the space. To show you, I'm assuming everyone knows what Timex did, but to show you that, and without sound, because this is not subtitled in English, I'll just show you a quick video that shows the things that were developed there that may be less common, okay? So, started in 81, 82. They developed, they assembled the Timex Sinclair 1000, a clone of the ZX81. They developed the TS 1500, which is a ZX81 with 16K. But then they started assembling the Spectrum, also sending computers to Dundee because of the huge need of stock. But then, after Timex USA withdrew from the computer business in '84, what happened was that the guys in Portugal kept going. So they developed some other models like the Timex Computer 2068, the 2048. They sent to Poland what became the Unipol Reed Computer 2086, and to Argentina the Cerbeni, because there was the war between England and Argentina, so there couldn't be a direct trade. So they used Timex in Portugal as a middleman to make this happen. Then they developed some alternative ULAs called the SCLD, which were developed with some very famous Portuguese research institutes that were starting back then. Because Timex was so big that all the suppliers to Timex could grow easily because there was demand. Okay, so that was a living lab for many companies around it. The other thing Timex did, and you may not know, for example, this last thing, what's written there is Timex Terminal 3000, February 14, 1986, I believe. The Timex Terminal, combined with the Timex floppy disk system and the monitor, the Neptune monitor, which is Polish, becomes a CPM station. Okay, so that's very uncommon. And so I just wanted to give a glimpse of the things they developed there. Now, what do we know behind the scenes about all of this? First, Timex was a farm. Timex was located in a kind of 70 or 60 acres agriculture farm, where they have football camps, they have pitches, they have vineyards, they have the houses of the administrators. So, working with the former employees, we were able to know what was on the farm when this started. And this is just a Google Earth with some pins explaining what was happening there. We never showed this, it's something it's not released yet. I am committed to eventually write a book about this, because we are having the support of the former employees. But this is something that shows that the computer unit, the plant, was just a tiny part. It was just a tiny part of everything, of this location. Now, just, okay, 20 minutes. So, formal opening. The unit opened on December 10, 1970. That was the formal opening. We see here Mr. Dahl was a Scottish man, the first guy to come to Portugal and open the unit back there. And this is the President of the Republic back then. Remember, we were living in a dictatorship and there was a revolution in 75 in Portugal. So freedom was not was something new to us, and that will be important in the future, as you will see. But in 70, they were basically making mechanical watches. That's what they were doing in Portugal. Okay, they had something like 2,000 ladies assembling the watches in the production line. Okay. There were historical moments. Here we see Mr. Emerson Fittipaldi, the Formula 1 driver. I met him 2 months ago in Portugal. He's still alive. I didn't know that. He had a watch with his name, produced in Portugal, and he visited the factory where there are some pictures that we had access to. And so I was lucky enough 2 months ago to meet him. He remembered this, and so he signed everything we had, and he was very friendly. He's Brazilian. And so he was in Portugal for a competition. There were some dark moments, and this is the thing that relates to the revolution. So in 75 we have the revolution in Portugal. In the sequence of the revolution, with all the movements, there was a situation in the unit, in the Timex unit, where basically there was an hostage situation to the administration. They were complaining they want better wages and all that. I'm not making any judgment, but what is important to us to know is that they had something like 2,000 employees. They were left with something like 80. Okay, so the Americans decided to almost shut down the unit. A few years later, beginning of the 80s, with a Portuguese administrator already, that will be very important to the story. Then they started the computing line of business and many other things. Okay, just to explain that this was important. So we know about the computing thing. We see here some 2048 Timex computers. But if you don't know this, Timex Portugal, and I'm talking more about Portugal now, did many other things. So they did watches, medical devices. They worked for IBM, developing ads for floppy disks and hard drives, which is something very they don't talk about this because this was completely confidential back then. So one thing they did very important to all this story, they set up an engineering and research and development team. And I think that was different from Dundee. I'm not sure. I don't know Dundee in detail, what happened there. But from what I know, this was very important, because that's why many of the Timex computers that were going to be sold in the US were eventually being assembled and then being developed, some of them in Portugal. For example, for those that know the Timex Sinclair 1500, there were several versions. One with a Ferranti ULA, one with an SCLD instead of the ULA. And there was even one project that we have the documentation, which is the cost reduction version. So using this new technology of replacing the ULA, they were improving the assemblage and the production of this computer, which was kind of successful in US before they tried with the Spectrum. Then they had the Sinclair line of business. They tried many years to develop a thing called electroluminescence. Never worked. A kind of a technology that it is somehow related to the Indigo technology that we have in the Timex watches. They work for Control Data. They work for Minolta. They work for UG in Sweden, where they developed these POS systems using the same technology they used to develop the Timex computers. So this, during the 80s, all of this is connected, and they had even Timex was so big. They had a magazine from Timex, Portugal, the Club Timex. That's the name. I'll show you an example of it. So the problem is this: lots and lots of information, and this applies to Timex. This could apply to any Gilsoft, can apply to any company we want to study. How do, in Portuguese I would say the expression, how do we skin the cat, but I think in English it's a little bit different. But the thing is, how do we achieve what we want? How do we, so we need to research, we need to preserve, we need to disseminate the knowledge, we need to evolve things. So, first one is easy, dissemination. So we can use the museum channels. I can be here today and sharing some of what I've been learning with you. And we publish a book, not mine, from my good friend André Leão. Some of you may know him, he's the founder of Planeta Sinclair. A blog in Portuguese, but it has a lot of viewers, 1 million viewers just 1 month ago. And so we wrote a book called The Portuguese Programmers. The thing is, many years ago, we thought that in Portugal, and remember, we didn't have a commercial circuit to commercialize software, because everything was piracy in Portugal in terms of games. Sorry guys, I won't pay royalties to anyone, it's not my fault, but I did my share of things, of course. But so the thing is, we thought there was something like 20 Portuguese programs, and by programs I mean games and educational software. We have 700, because of the work of André, who's every tape he has access to, he starts looking it. If it's international, goes to Spectrum Computing. If it's not, he preserves it. We release it if we are allowed in the museum, of course, also. And then he wrote a book, which was the first book from the museum about this. Okay, it's in Portuguese. We are not planning to make it in English for now because it's very specialized, but it exists and we are very proud of it. Second thing, research preservation. I think this is the most interesting part to you. I'm going to share a lot of internal things we've been having access and that I imagine no one knows in terms of never seen. This is one of the examples of the Club Timex magazine. As you can see, the cover is not related to computers, even though there's a lot of things like that. But so this is one example. There are 9 issues. We have them in the museum. If someone visits, it's in Portuguese, but you can take a look at it. Focus on things like Christmas parties, all those kind of things. Then internal documentation. Just to explain, this is a certificate of training. Someone from the company having training on using the FDD 3000. Okay. Using the FDD 3000 and the Timex terminal that I mentioned before. And then a very important thing. There was some issue here, but so this letter is basically a letter sent to employees saying, guys, computer business is not working anymore. We need to basically send you home. So, why is this important? Because we have a date, 27th of May, 1988. That's when they were facing issues and they were shutting down the computing business. So this is historical. This makes sense for us. Then we do know that they were trying to release power switching supplies. They never sold them, but they were trying to release. We do have prototypes of one of these models. I don't know which one. The other one we don't have yet. But they never commercialized it. But they had flyers. Then they had flyers about flat CRT display modules. Timex Dundee assembled the FTV from Sinclair, the flat screen TV that Clive Sinclair did in '85. I don't know, I'm being honest, I don't know if there's any connection between this board and the one from Sinclair. I think not, but nevertheless they tried to sell it as a device for their customers. Okay? Now this gets to start more interesting. TENET. TENET is one of the 2 projects Timex Portugal never ended. TENET means Timex Educational Network. 25 computers connected in a network in a classroom where the professor could control what was going on in the computer of the student. There is a pile of information on this. There is 1 or 2 prototypes that we had access, and we are basically trying to rebuild it right now. This is interesting. When I was told about TENET, someone told me, we tried to sell this in China, to the Chinese railway. And then someone else came and said, not China, India. And then we go and we find papers proving that they are both right. This one is from 19 November '86, travel to China, Luís Bandeira is still alive. He was the commercial director. Antonio Gomes was the CEO of the managing director of the company. And Álvaro Oliveira was the number 2. It was very important also in Timex. What they are saying here is that we trying to introduce a system tenant through a contact from Mike Biddlecombe as an interface to the Chinese market. We offer it to the Beijing Commission for Science and Technology, which offered it to the Chinese Railway Ministry. So bottom line, yes, they tried to sell it to China. They were not, never worked, not even in Portugal, okay? But they did the proof of concept. Now, very interesting thing. I don't know if you know or not. I didn't know this. I heard this in an interview. I couldn't relax until I could confirm it. Timex Portugal developed things also for other computers. I didn't know this. And not many things, just one that I know. The FDD system, there was a batch done for the Auric Atmos. Sold as the name Jasmine, sold in France, and it says below Fabriqué par in French, Timex Portugal. So I was very proud when I was told this. The guy that I was interviewing was telling me, oh, we did something for another computer. I think it was for Atari. And I said, Atari, it can't be. If it was Atari, we would know. The community would know. And he kept going, and he says something like, it's an orange and black computer. And I said, no, it's Auric Atmos. It's not Atari, it's Atmos, and it was true. I had to buy 2 sets, because the first one was a Jasmine 2, which was not made by Timex, and I was really pissed off. But then the second one was made by Timex, and I was very, very happy to find out this. We have it in the museum. Then we have the Iron Lady visiting Portugal, Baroness Thatcher. So Prime Minister of Portugal, Margaret Thatcher and Antonio Gomes, who was the managing director, and they are showcasing some Timex Sinclair 1000, 1500. I think this was around 84, so there was not the Timex computers, the other ones. They don't appear anywhere. Make a chip, so it's still there, also there. So, and some others. I'm almost finishing. Just a couple of things. Now, evolution. We don't want just to preserve. We want to preserve. But I'm not a technically skilled guy, but I need to have volunteers around me that are. So, what are we trying to do? I'll just give you one example, a simple one. So, but we are trying basically to do a little bit like Jurassic Park, trying to avoid the extinction of this kind of information. So, all kinds of interviews, technical information, incomplete artifacts that we have access, information from the website, for example, Portuguese website, Timex Computer World, from a friend of mine who gave it to the museum to be improved. So we are trying to do all of this, then to demonstrate how this works, and then to make it available to the community. That's the intention. One example. We are not the first ones, even though people don't speak much about this, but I know that Mark Smith also did one thing like this. But so we rebuilt the ULA from the Timex computers. This is a friend of mine, Alvaro. He did it, we demonstrated it last April, running a game in a Timex computer 2048, in the 40th anniversary of the Spectrum. And to do it, he basically created a board that injected all kind of signals, see what the result was, and he was able to rebuild it like that. So this is the kind of things we want to do. Why are we doing this? First, if you have a problem in the SCLD, in the ULA of the Timex computer, you need to cannibalize another one. So we can solve that. There is a Polish guy doing some replicas. I think it's called the Tini, so this will help. And the Timex Terminal 3000 uses the same SCLD. So doing this, and because we have the PCB without the components and all of that, we may be able to recreate it. So that's something we want to do also. This is only possible because we have these guys, which are some of the members from the engineering team, helping us many, many times. This is not only the engineering team, this was a delegation of Timex former employees that visited in September the museum. And this is some of the engineering team members looking at some of their creations. I think this is very good. Last weekend, one of them was telling me, we didn't know our work was so important for so many people. And this is priceless. This is priceless. So, another video about what the museum has been doing, and just the final slides of another event, and that's it. These are some Portuguese guys that made two of these guys did Alien Evolution that was sold by Gremlin. It's the first Portuguese game to be successful in the Spectrum. Miguel Guerreiro is the creator of XDOS that we all use to access the SD cards. I didn't know the guy was Portuguese, to be very honest. This is a fanzine that we offer in the museum in Portuguese. And this is our pictures from the 40th anniversary. We did the 2 days event we did in Portugal with presence of some of the names I showed you. Thank you. So, just to finalize, to be able to have at least one or two questions. So, now we are stepping outside, so we are trying to bring the museum closer and closer to people. That's one of the reasons I'm here. Obviously, I wanted to come. So, I was in Play Expo Blackpool with the next team. We were last week in Lisboa Games Week. We are in Crash and we'll be in Comic Con next weekend or so. These are just some pictures from Lisboa Games Week. So now we have the capacity to bring an exhibition wherever we want, and it was thought to be easy to carry. So who knows? Even in UK, why not? One day we may do it. So we try to combine testing, experimenting the computers also with the history, which is what we do in a unique way. The C5 there, some cosplay, also it's typical from this kind of events. This is a gamer, a Portuguese gamer who is a kind of a famous Portuguese actor. He did a couple of movies where he portrayed Jesus Christ, which were internationally successful, and he was also there. We gave a 30 minutes interview in a national TV, but on a gaming network they have called Seek Advance. I'm there showing the next, as to show people that this is not something only from 40 years ago. This is alive. We have 200 to 300 new games being released every year. We also took the opportunity to film for an Italian documentary, so Andrea was being interviewed there. We are also I participated in the Rubber Key Wonder that we are going to see something late at night. And so this finished my presentation. I know I brought a lot of stuff, but I wanted to share some of these things with you. So in the last 5 minutes or so, I'm open to questions from Graham or from the audience, whatever you want. Thank you, everyone.
Great stuff. I think it's so lovely also to see our two countries bonded as well through the Spectrum.
We have the oldest alliance in the world.
Exactly, exactly. So it's so lovely to see that. So I have one question before we open it up. There was a really lovely video earlier of your youth playing on the Spectrum. What game do you think you were playing there? What game were you likely playing there? Or were you doing some programming, do you think?
It's funny, I was looking at it yesterday and thinking, I don't know what game that is. Whenever people ask me about games, I'm not an expert in games. So what I can say is the ones I remember playing. So, and we can have games as simple as iNoon or Phoenix, or we can have games like Pyjamarama that I loved. Tiger Road was a game I loved because to me was the kind of the first game that looked like the arcades. So you have a guy with an axe and you would go on and fight all the opponents. But obviously all the names like Renegade, Target Renegade, Double Dragon, all those games. Robocop, I remember when I saw Robocop and I saw the graphics, I was like, it can't be better than this. That specific game I don't remember. I spent years, to be honest, trying to find a picture with the computer. I don't have a picture. Then I digitized all the tapes my parents and my cousins had, and I found those 30 seconds, and I was like, okay, at least I have a picture of me with the computer. So that's it. That's the story. Yeah.
You already mentioned as well about the copied games, because I remember going to Portugal on holiday as a kid and seeing rows and rows of cassettes at slightly cheaper than they were in England, and thinking, I'll have some of that.
They would cost us something like 200 schools, which, forgetting the inflation, was €1 now, which was money to us, was money, was significant. But there is one thing I think it's important to clarify. Most of the times we didn't know we weren't buying original games, because the games were in color. They said instructions in Portuguese. You had that idea to sell one thing in Portugal, you need to have instructions in Portuguese. So we thought they were original, those. Then there were the other ones which were clearly copied. I did my share of copies also, of course. I had my uncle, whenever he would come, he would bring a bag with tapes, with all kinds of things. But yeah, so the thing is, it was very hard. I don't know if anyone had original games in Portugal, at least bought in Portugal. I'm sure they didn't. So you'd go to a store, you had a catalog, you choose a couple of titles, they tell you go for a lunch or something, or for a coffee. When you come back, they just finish copying it. And then you had two types of copies. You had the ones that are basically copying the original, and the ones that the store was so big that they had their own cover, and they just put with a typewriter the name of the game. And so what happens is that now we have a wall in the museum where people go and they say, oh, I used to buy these tapes. These are from Lisbon area. Oh, these ones are from Porto area. These are from wherever. So it's crazy. It's crazy what happened there.
Well, fortunately, none of that sort of thing went on here.
Sorry, guys.
Does anyone have any questions for Joao before we wrap up? We've got 5 minutes, so time for a couple of quick questions, or... Yeah.
There.
You spoke about the TC2048, and I'm fortunate enough to have one of them. It's a brilliant B machine. Machine is Sticky Plus, should have been. But all I do is play Sticky stuff on it. And you spoke about the Portuguese software. Does any of that use the enhanced video modes? And if so, where can I get them?
Where can I get it? I'm pretty sure some of them are available. So there are a couple of titles, not that many. The best example I can give you, because I remember seeing it in Andres, my friend, presentation, is there is a version of Manic Miner that uses a different color scheme. I don't know if it was made, no, but it was launched by Timex, so supposedly it was something kind of official that uses a different color scheme. So I know it works on the 2068, I think it works on 2048. But my experience is a little bit like yours, so I use it just like the normal Spectrum. Where to get it? So we have in Portugal, we have a kind of an eBay thing called OLX. So it's basically an advertisement place where you can find some of those titles. But I think that won't be easy to get like that. Probably if you are okay with a digital copy, I'm pretty sure it's possible to get it. I suggest you contact me, and I'll pass to someone that can help you with that.
We've got time for one more quick question. If anyone else
there was
has a
one
question.
here. Another gram. 2 grams.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations. It's been amazing. Obviously, you've collected lots of pieces of hardware. What would you say is most special to you? Both one example of a computer and then one example of perhaps a Sinclair another non-computer piece of hardware.
You know, whenever I get these kind of questions, I normally try to understand who's making the question. So, are you a Spectrum collector? Are you a Sinclair fan? So, because that changes everything. So, we have one of the, I think it's the 13 oldest issue one that we know where it is in the world. We have it, but it's just one thing. There are others older. We don't have the issue 5 board. If everyone wants to know, I don't. I have friends trying to help me to get one, but we don't have it yet. So it's very hard to choose one. I could say, oh, it's the prototypes from Timex. Yes, to me they are very special as a Portuguese. To you, I don't know. But for example, we have from the clones, we have all the Brazilian line of clones. We have the Indian Spectrum that I thought it was official because it uses an issue 7 board. But I saw an article in an old magazine about Amstrad complaining that they didn't know how they did it, so probably it was not official. So there are many, many things like that. If we go out of the computers, we have the MK14, the ZX80 is very special. We have the, I hope I'm not raising a big issue here, but that huge discussion about the original or the true plus 2A board. Yes, we got it. We found it in Spain, the board without the floppy disk part. But that is, let's say, some people argue it's the real plus 2A. Going out of the computers, for example, one thing I love a lot is the Neoteric amplifier. The design was made by Ian Sinclair, the brother of Sir Clive, and it's lovely. We have the Sovereign calculator, the limited edition with the royal stamp. So there are many, many objects like those. I'm forgetting a lot of them for sure. But I think what makes it unique is not one object. What makes this different is that we have them all combined and we have them on display, and you can play with them and use them, obviously not in an uncontrolled manner. I won't put the ZX80 being used without a little bit of care. But if someone wants to try it, and if he asks me, yeah, why don't we try to do it? So, and I never said, and I don't think I'm the biggest collector of Sinclair in the world. I don't think that. I know that there are people here for sure with more. The difference is that we found the purpose to do with this and to bring this to the community. That's probably what makes it different.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Joao, for presenting everything to us. And it's lovely to see it. And good luck with the museum going forward, okay? Give it up for Joao.